How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. So like I mentioned in my DragonFly Black review that I'll be comparing it to the Chord Mojo. So this is the video where I'm gonna compare it to the Chord Mojo. Now before we get started, the reason why I'm doing this is because when I was searching for something like this, and this is what I came across, you know, as a really tiny duck that doesn't have battery and you can use it portably whatever you want and stuff like that. I came across a lot of people on headfi.org, I think it is, and they're wondering how the DragonFly Black or the red compares to the Chord Mojo. Now I've got the black but I don't have the red, and I am also not deciding on getting the red because it does suck a bit too much power, as I've heard. But I have came across a few others that are like this. So let me just go ahead and talk about that for a few minutes or something, and then we'll get on to the comparison between these two devices. Okay, so the reason I got the DragonFly Black is because it relies on the power of the host, as in whatever you're using. And when I'm trying to go to sleep, I like to listen to music which helps me go to sleep. You know, go to sleep, I mean, I can't talk properly. Now I can set a timer on this music player and it will automatically shut off, you know, after I fall asleep. Who's gonna turn it off? I've had the problem with the Chord Mojo and this. They both killed the battery. Like when I woke up, they were both completely dead, so I had to charge them, and I really don't like that because it's just a complete waste of time. I wanted to go out and stuff and they're just dead, right? And so now I can put this on timer, but if I did, it would turn off, but the Chord Mojo wouldn't. It would still stay on. So that's why I needed something like this, which will automatically turn off because it just cut the power, and so that will, you know, go off. So that's the reason I got the DragonFly Black, and I love it, but it has this one problem. So I'm going to be looking into other ducks that are like this, that, you know, rely, they're just USB ducks, just like this, portable ones. So I've seen from some of them, I mean, actually one of them from each of the company that I looked at. One is from Fio, and it's called the Fio K1, which is pretty much the same spec as this, but it's a bit smaller and everything. I'm interested in that, and it's actually quite cheap. It's like 40 quid. That's how cheap it is. Bloody cheap, half the price of this one. So I'm kind of curious to get that one in, and that's because this one has a volume problem, which I'll go into in a bit. And then there's also one from Shanling, which is the Shanling Up, and that is the most high end one that I've come across because I've only looked at them too, on the DragonFly obviously, and that goes up to 192 kHz 24-bit, whereas this DragonFly Black, the red, and the previous DragonFly, and also the Fio K1, it only goes up to 96 kHz 24-bit. But either of that doesn't really matter because my music player only has up to 96 kHz files, because I do have a memory card that can store all these others. I've got the DSD and all the others into my hard drive, which I use with the Mojo. So I'll definitely look into the others as well, but let's just focus on this one right now. This is the only one I have. I'm gonna get the Fio K1 just to see if that actually improves the volume control. And let's talk about the volume control first. So with the DragonFly Black, it has a analog digital volume control thingy, just like the first DragonFly, I think, and basically it just doesn't work at all. You know, for what it's made for, it doesn't work at all. It's meant to be used with earbuds and stuff, which are really easy to drive, but the thing is, it's too loud for that. It's just either very quiet or very loud. Now as compared to the Mojo, it has 100 steps of volume up and down, right? It changes color as well, and stuff like that, so everybody loves that. So this is definitely better when it comes to driving headphones, because it drives more than this, the DragonFly, but it also drives higher end headphones than the DragonFly Black can. With 250 ohms, I couldn't really push them properly with this. I would just about do it. I would say yes, it does work with it, but it does work with the DragonFly Black 250 ohm headphones. But with the Mojo, it's like a fraction of the volume and it pushes them. But also, the Mojo apparently has a really low noise floor, and I'm going to talk about this now. So the noise flow on the Mojo is so quiet that it's like non-existent. And when you're out and about in the daytime, like, you're not going to hear it. Like, it's impossible. That's how quiet it is, right? But when you're at night, when everybody's asleep and it's dead quiet, or you can hear your heartbeat, then the Mojo, you can't hear the noise level, but it's freaking quiet as flip. I mean, you can barely hear it. That's how quiet the noise floor is, and that's with really easy to drive headphones. So it's, well, in other words, it's basically almost impossible to listen to the Mojo's noise floor. whereas the DragonFly Black is very close. It's just double the volume of the noise floor as the Mojo, maybe a bit more than that. So you can definitely hear it with the IEMs and stuff, but I wouldn't say it's a problem. I'd say when you're out and about, it's impossible to listen to. I mean, it's definitely just black. I mean, that's how much it is. But compared to the Mojo, this has about more than double the level of volume as the noise level as the Mojo. So the Mojo is going to take the win over here. Alright, second thing is, or probably the third one, I don't know. Another thing actually is that the DragonFly Black is a bit bright. So the sound signature is a bit bright, whereas the Mojo is ever so slightly warm, as I hear people say, but I don't think so. It's actually more flat, and I'll get into that in a bit. But it is meant to be a bit warm. Rob Watts did say he wanted it a bit warm, so he just put that kind of thingy inside it. So yes, I will agree that it does sound a bit warm, but that's because it's 3D, and I'll get into the sound stage in a bit. The DragonFly Black is actually a bit bright. That means the frequency response is gonna be let's just bring in this over here just for a moment. Okay, so the DragonFly Black, basically the frequency response, just take this as like a graph or something, because I don't have a graph over here. But the DragonFly Black has a frequency response that goes a bit uphill, so everything that's meant to be the highs, like in the drum kit, the clash, I mean, stuff like that, whatever it's called, the dishes, or I don't know what you call them, the hi-hat or the hits or whatever, they're really amazing. They are really amazing on the DragonFly Black, because they actually make them louder than the mids. So here it is, the highs are like that a bit, the mids are like here, but the bass is actually kicked up a bit, right? So it's basically like a V that looks like a tick. And I say that because it seems like people say that it's a bit bright and everything, but you can actually hear the kick in the drum. I mean, in the drum kit, you can actually hear the kick, but the rest of the drums are really damped down. Like, you only have the sound of them, you don't have the feel of them. Like, as in the bass, you don't have the oomph in them, but you have like the sound. If you were to hit the drum, it will go like ding a bit. That part of the drum, instead of the deep bass, you do have the kick. So you can definitely tell that they're there, but they don't feel like drums. They feel more like other instruments, like a piano or something. And that's what I don't like about this. Now, that's not to say it's a bad. I love it because some songs sound a lot different than all the other things I have around here, including the Mojo. It sounds completely different compared to the Mojo. But there are some songs that I have that rely heavily on bass and stuff, and it only has the kick. Basically, that's the sub bass, right? Like the really low end one. And the mid to low bass, I mean, yeah, the low mids are basically really quiet, and then the highs are obviously louder. And so that's why it's just some songs that rely on the drums and stuff. They don't sound like there's actually a drum kit in there. It just sounds like somebody's tapping on a wall or something. That's something that you need to consider. Is a bit bright. I know a lot of people don't understand this, but just get your head straight. Basically, there's less bass in it, and then it's like they took out the bass and they just boosted it up. They boosted the kick up, so it sounds like really artificial and stuff. But it does sound a lot more enjoyable, and in a way it just kind of feels really hi-fi. It's colored and everything, and for the price it sounds pretty much damn straight amazing. Now the Mojo is a bit different. It's a bit more like well balanced, like well balanced, like straight, but the bass, the kick goes just up a bit, just like that. So it's a bit like goes like this, and then the rest goes like straight. The thing with the Mojo is people say it's a bit warm. I kind of like that. It's not too warm that it actually feels like it's warm. It feels quite natural and everything, but I don't know what it is. I mean, it's just it's a bit more like it's perfectly balanced out or something, because I think the boost in the bass, the little bit one, is there to actually make it sound more like a live performance or something. I mean, when you have the kick and the bass and the drums, they're really loud and stuff, and so this actually kind of proves of that. But in my opinion, I'd say it's a bit more natural than warm. And I'll get to the soundstage now in a bit, so let's just get into that right now. Soundstage between both of these devices is what makes them completely different. So this has a completely different soundstage, and then the Mojo has a soundstage that no other DAC that I've heard has. And so let me just get into that. So the DragonFly Black has a really wide soundstage. I'll say about, let's just say it's up to here at the edge of the screen of whatever you're using, right? Soundstage is like really wide. Well, it's not the widest that you'll probably hear, but it's quite wide. But the soundstage is linear, so it's basically just a 2D line. If you're hearing the music, it's only going to be in the middle or on the sides. And that's what almost every other DAC has, at least the one with ESS DACs. DAC chips inside, so the Saber DACs, that is, the Saber chips, they have a 2D soundstage as far as I know. Now, basically what that means, if you hear a drum roll or something, it'll just roll across, right? But this is as an example. The soundstage is about this wide, and so basically every instrument has a bit of emptiness between them. And that's something to consider, because it does well go with the soundstage. It just kind of proves that it has a soundstage, a much better one than the Mojo, as far as normal people are concerned. But it has a bit of space between the instruments and stuff, so it's going to be like empty, like nothing is in the middle of them. Whereas the Mojo has actually a 3D soundstage. So like I said, the Black is about this wide. The Mojo is just about this wide. Compared to the Black, it's not that far off. But the thing is, the Mojo has a 3D soundstage which goes around in a circle. Well, to be honest with you, through my listening, it's more like an oval that goes a bit forward and a bit like this. I'm looking at the screen, it's got a bit of a delay on it. It's a bit like this, right? And that makes a world's difference in terms of how it sounds, because everything sounds like it's, I don't know how to explain it really. You see, the echoes of every instrument, they actually exist in the Mojo soundstage, so it makes it sound much more natural and everything. The reflections of the wall of the instruments, you can actually hear that in the Mojo. So it's like the Mojo is a digital club that you go to and you listen to your music and it's performed live in front of you. It's a bit like that, except you're not as an audience, you're standing in the middle of the stage, so everything is around you. So compared to the Black, it may not be as wide, but it's actually 3D, and that makes a world's difference. I've never heard another DAC that is 3D, and this is very important when it comes to the drum. So the drum actually sounds like completely different. I don't know if it sounds more natural or something, but it doesn't sound digital. So when you hear the drums, it's like when somebody hits the drums, there's like a hollow air inside it that makes the drum sound. It'll actually feel like there's something is being hit with the air inside it, so like as a bubble, and you'll actually feel it. The drums, they actually spread out across the whole stage. And let me just get into the separation. The separation between the Mojo and on the Mojo between the instruments is actually, between the instruments, it's not that great, I'll admit with you, but I'm guessing that's because it's 3D, it's actually positioning them about and stuff. But the separation between the channels is like non-existent, like everything is completely separate, similar to the DragonFly Black, but I haven't really just paid attention to the separation on this. But they both just completely separate, that's how good they are. When you put the Mojo soundstage next to the DragonFly Black, it'll feel like it's more like mono, but when you just listen to it for a few minutes, maybe like a minute or so, that is actually, you'll actually get into it, because it's actually 3D and you'll want to throw this away. And that's considering the price tag. This Mojo cost £400 compared to a £90 or something, which is also portable. The DragonFly Black, they're both portable. So considering the soundstage, the Mojo in every way, even the soundstage, stumps the DragonFly Black. But I'm not going to stop over there. Let me just go forward. The detail in the Mojo is staggering. I don't know what to say. The highs and the mids, and especially the mids and the lows as well, they all sound like they're so filled in and everything. Is there any way to explain it? I really don't know. The DragonFly Black is not bad, especially for the price. It's much better than the few Q1 that I've had, that I actually have over here. So the FIO Q1 is about 60-70 pound, and that's 90, and they're completely different. Like, it's nothing alike compared to the FIO Q1. This is so much more better. Now the Mojo processes audio differently. I mean, in a different way. It has a different purpose. Whereas the DragonFly Black and a lot of the other DACs, I mean pretty much any other DAC, has one purpose, and that's to make it sound more beautiful, more hi-fi, more colorful, and more enjoyable, which the DragonFly does and the Mojo doesn't. The Mojo has a different purpose. The Mojo's purpose is to try to get the signal to be as raw as possible, and that basically means that wherever the signals come from, the origin, basically the source, which is in the studio, is going to try to make it as close as possible to that. And so that's why in some songs, and you're not going to believe this, you actually hear the noise reduction that's been applied to the microphones and stuff. I've been listening to DSD. Oh yeah, by the way, that's another thing. The Mojo supports native DSD, whereas the DragonFly Black doesn't. So yeah, something to consider. I mean, I don't know if there's any other DAC that's the same price that does native DSD. The FPGA chip inside it does multiple things. It's not just a digital to analog converter. It checks the body, makes sure the body is safe and sound. It does the power thingy, it does the indicators over here, it does the soundstage and the processing. It even does the DSD processing and stuff like that. I mean, basically it's just the heart of this thing. It just does everything. And from a lot of the reviews and stuff, I've heard that the Mojo is comparable to a desktop DAC, which would cost you about £3,000. So that's something to consider. But when it comes to speakers and everything, this is the better way to go. I mean, it's so 3D, it makes everything sound like the way it's meant to be sounded and everything. So the difference between this and the Mojo is that it's not as portable as the DragonFly Black. So, and you're gonna have to worry about battery life, and that's why I got this, but it just doesn't have proper volume. Talking about volume, this will drive anything perfectly. So the volume level goes so quiet that you can do IEMs perfectly fine, and it goes so high, but the difference between one level of volume is so little that you can just perfect it. Like, you can perfect it to your own liking, drive anything any volume. The maximum this goes is 6 volts. That's how much power it pushes out, and the lowest is about 0 volts. And each time you change the volume, it actually changes the volt by 1 decibel. And so whatever, what do you want to say of that? It's freaking cool. Whereas this is, I don't know where it is, honestly. Now when it comes to the marbles, these are kind of like gimmicky. I like the fact that they added them, but I never really thought about them. Like, you know, when I'm using them, I just like look at them for the color. That's it. The rest is just, they're there. I don't care about them. They're there, and I just don't really bother with them. But you can't charge the Mojo at the same time, so you can use it in a hi-fi setup, and that basically means it's never going to run out of battery and stuff. So if you're going to use it at home, it's better to get the Mojo. But considering the price, I don't know. This isn't actually meant to be set in a hi-fi system, so don't get that if you're going to do that. But that's fine as well. You know, I mean, the sound, it makes it, it's meant to be used with only music, whereas this, you can actually use it with anything. If it's anything, the frequency response is quite neutral as well, so that's why I'm not going to get into that. It sounds amazing. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll leave it here. If you guys have any questions, let me know about these two in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to buy them both, and I'll see you again in another video.